Hi, I'm Phil Harbottle and this is my 58th video discussing British science fiction. In this video I continue to show my own comic strip adaptations of the Radio Luxembourg Dan Dare radio serial. Here we see my third story, which I call The Theron's Secret. Began on the 3rd of February and finished on the 7th of March 1955. Space Fleet HQ has learned that an attack on the Earth by the Mekon is imminent, using a new type of guided missile. Andorus, a Theron scientist, knows the secret of constructing an electronic defense system and is flying to Earth to pass on the vital information in person because radio messages could be picked up by the Mekon. Sir Hubert asks Digby and Dan to lead a squadron of fighters to meet Andorus' ship and escort it to Earth. The precaution is justified as they are attacked by the Mekon's battleship. After a fierce dogfight in space, the Trine ship is driven off. After landing, Andorus is able to pass on his information to a gathering of scientists when he suddenly collapses and falls into a coma and is rushed to hospital. He's diagnosed as suffering from a rare virus condition, the only known cure for which is on Mars. The cure consists of being injected with a serum and being irradiated in a unifier chamber. Dan, Digby and Jocelyn fly to Mars with the comatose Theron. En route to Mars, Andorus recovers momentarily and mutters, "Use SDD-27 before lapsing into a coma again. Dan risks radioing this information to Earth, but his signal's picked up by the Mekon. The Mekon sends a Trine ship to kidnap Andorus. Landing on Mars, Dan is met by the scientist Bronia, who is to provide the medical treatment Andorus needs. But before the treatment can begin, the Mekon's troops, led by Herlock, attack them. The Mekon's force attacks them and captures Andorus and destroys Bronia's facilities. The action flows fast and furiously as Dan and members of his party are captured and escape from the Mekon at various times, as well as having to contend with attacks by giant ants. There's the giant ants. Dan learns that another Martian scientist, Roseanne, is running a chemical and industrial plant which has the needed serum and is also manufacturing the SDD-27 antenna system for the Mekon's missiles. Dan and Digby meet Roseanne and investigate his plant, where they obtain the serum to revive Andorus, who has been rescued from the Mekon. The ants are driven off by Digby, who fires gas pellets at them using a catapult, the elastic for which is taken from Jocelyn's space suit. One of the frequent touches of humour used in the series to leaven the melodrama. After more adventures, Dan manages to send a radio warning to the Earth. And Earth sets out an attacking fleet to Mars. When the Mekon attempts to kill Roseanne, so see there, thinking he served his purpose, Roseanne manages to survive long enough to pass on the secret of the SDD-27 antenna system to Dan before he dies. The information is confirmed by the now recovered Andorras, and Dan's radio message is received in the nick of time to avert the Mekon's missile attack. Dan takes command of the task force, which destroys the Mekon's base on Mars. But the Mekon and Herlock manage to make their escape. I'd worked non-stop for nearly 6 months, capturing 3 long serials complete in 1,262 panels, the only existing detailed record of these classic stories. The next story I transcribed was one which I entitled When Worlds Rotate. In this story, Sir Hubert sends Dan, Digby and Jocelyn on a rescue mission to the asteroid Nogra to bring back Professor Fletcher from his Deep Space Observatory. He had reported that a runaway nova was heading towards Nogra and was due to explode. Now, whether this scientific absurdity was my youthful misinterpretation or perpetrated by the original scriptwriter, I cannot say, but novas don't behave like that, of course. Now, we see there that Nogra doesn't revolve. So one hemisphere was in permanent darkness and the other bathed in sunshine. Vixor is the leader of a race called Athelians, who live in the sunny southern hemisphere. Several years earlier, he'd exiled Hurler and his band of fellow criminals to the cold side. Herger, we see him there, suitably villainous. Herger had enslaved a party of Martian scientists whose spaceship had crashed on Nogra's side, and he put them to work to ensure his and their own survival. Using the Martian scientific knowledge, Herger had built an underground city with life sustained by the invention of an artificial food called Demetron. Now, just before Dan and Corcoran reach Nogra, the so-called nova explodes and sets Nogra spinning on its axis. This results in Nogra's northern hemisphere experiencing sunshine for the first time, and more disastrously, the southern hemisphere being plunged into darkness. This is threatening the survival of Vixor's people as their crops wither and die. See in that panel, Vixor explaining. When Dan lands at Fletcher's observatory, which is in Herger's northern hemisphere, he's present when Vixor pleads unsuccessfully with Herger to share the secret of producing Demetron to save the southern Thalians from facing starvation. Herger tries to murder Jocelyn. who's working on how to make an artificial food like Demeter and herself. There we see he tries to murder her by locking her in a room where the temperature's increased to a fatal level. But just in time, she's rescued by Dan, who's learned the truth about Herger. The story takes all sorts of interesting twists and turns. Plenty of action and intrigue. And here, on this page, suddenly we see my artwork improve when my father loaned me his black Indian ink and a decent mapping pen, so I could lay aside my old school broad nib pen and blue quink. See the improvement of the Indian ink and making everything stand out. But in May 1955, the radio reception for Luxembourg, even on rediffusion, deteriorated so badly I had to abandon the story after 9 episodes, completing just 18 pages. But then, in mid-July, the reception suddenly picked up again, sufficient for me to commence transcribing a new story I called The Cosmic Umbrella. Dan, Digby and Jocelyn are summoned to Space Fleet HQ by Sir Hubert. The flap concerns the destruction of a food ship from Venus, which has hit an electrical barrier around the planet, turned red hot and then exploded. Another ship, the Dover, is searching for survivors. And at Space Fleet HQ, they're in televiewer contact with the captain. Televiewer contact with the captain of the rescue ship. They can only watch and listen helplessly as the Dover meets the same fate as the other ship. Sir Hubert sends Dan's team to investigate in a new ship, the Astral, which it's hoped will be able to survive the barrier. On nearing Venus, Jocelyn discovers the reason for the trouble. Cosmic particles have been concentrated above the North Pole of Venus, where magnetism is attracting more and more particles from outer space. After much of the usual Dick Barton-like action-packed adventure, Dan and Digby are brought before the King of the Icemen. He boasts that the cosmic umbrella is his doing. The Icemen have territorial ambitions, and as their bodies are vulnerable to warmth, they're seeking to freeze the whole of northern Venus by setting the cosmic umbrella to screen out the sun's rays. After that, they have plans to freeze the Earth. But when the gods remove their space helmets preparatory to paralysing them again, Dan and Digby break away and dodge into a laboratory annex. Here, they're astonished to find the Mekon directing operations. He is the real mastermind behind the cosmic umbrella and has formed an alliance with the Icemen. This is the episode, one of the surviving episodes. An individual tape recorded this story, one episode, and this is the sequence that exists. It's the only one that exists. It's an amateur tape recording, and it's reflected in this sequence in my comic strip. But once again, with this story, I'd just completed 17 pages before deteriorating radio reception caused me to abandon the story and drawing any more Dan Dare comic strips. Interested viewers can find fuller details of this story and others in 2 articles posted on John Freeman's award-winning Down the Tubes YouTube channel. John himself was able to compare the only surviving tape recording of an episode of this serial, as I mentioned, with my Cosmic Umbrella comics representation, and he confirmed that they closely match. Just Google search the Dan Dare Radio Luxembourg comic strips by Philip Harbottle and the Dan Dare Radio Adventures, an episode guide. So, because of atrocious radio reception, it looked like my comic strips had come to an end. But then, one of my school friends, Terence Balburney, told me that his friend Graham was willing to sell me his collection of Eagles from the first issue in May 1950 through to February 1953, covering the first 3 classic Dan Dare adventures: The Venus Story, The Red Moon Mystery, and Marooned on Mercury. Naturally, I grabbed at this opportunity to complete my Dan Dare collection. Now, seeing those marvellous stories again stirred my creativity and enthusiasm for Dan Dare to fever pitch. And once again, I was inspired to write and draw my own Dan Dare story. And during November 1955, I completed the story I called The Negative Space Cloud Threat. Now, whilst the opening page, with its idea of the Earth being threatened by a negative space cloud, dissolving everything it touched, was inspired by a story in a Marvel Man comic, this quickly developed into my own original storyline and a sequel to the Red Moon Mystery. Now, whilst in the Eagle story, the Martians had all been wiped out by the Red Moon millennia ago, in my story, a group of them have been surviving in suspended animation deep inside a Martian cabin. Dan Dare's Uncle Ivor, a Martian archaeologist, is called in and is able to converse with the now revived Martians. We learn that thousands of years earlier, a similar cloud had threatened Mars and had been dispersed by an outside agency. We then discover that the destroyer of the cloud had been an ancestor of the Mekon, who fired into it a mysterious rare element, Vetrium, found only on the hell planet Jupiter. Dan and his crew are captured by the Mekon, whose ship is en route to Jupiter. With Vetrium, he can hold the Earth to ransom. And Dan and his crew are forced to obtain some vetrium for the Mekon, but they're then marooned on Jupiter by the Mekon. It takes off, leaving them marooned behind on the Hell planet. But after some pretty gruesome adventures involving a disembodied brain that feeds on human blood, the horror comics influence again, they are eventually able to escape and catch up with the Mekon's ship. And by a clever stratagem, they're successful in destroying not only the cloud, but the Mekon's ship as well, and capture the Mekon. Digby tells them, "It's a rehabilitation centre for you, Mekky lad." Now, I'd worked at top speed completing this 15-page story comprising 285 small but carefully drawn panels with as many as 20 panels a page, an incredible 62 hours working time. Each page took me just over 4 hours. I recorded this feat at the bottom of the page. If you can just read there, 62 hours to complete the sketching of the story. Now, the reason for this speed was because before the end of the story, radio reception for Luxembourg had miraculously improved suddenly, and a new Dan Dare serial had started, and I was eager to adapt it. So I was able to announce this story at the back of the book there, which you see. What is the mystery of Planetoid V24? To be unravelled in a story which is coming soon. This time Dan and Co go to Venus in search of the mystery metal Ceruleum, but this proves far from easy. The Ceruleum Stealers would be my final Dan Dare Radio Luxembourg comic strip, and my longest and most detailed, some 850 small panels. We'll look at this unique story in my next video.